Good morrow, Ashers, and I'm back with another video, and this time we're going to talk about the monetization of Ashes of Creation. Yes, how will we be paying? What is the upsides to the model they're using? What are the pros? What are the cons? And what can we expect from the model? Should you be buying? Yes or no? When should you be buying? All those kinds of things I'll be discussing in this video. First off, let's clarify the model of monetization that Ashes of Creation will be using. The game will be subscription based at a fee of $15 a month. This is no box cost at all. So that means you're allowed to play or able to play the game without paying an initial $60 to purchase a boxed or digital copy, and instead are expected and have to pay a $15 a month fee. It is important to note that in first world countries this isn't a lot of money at all for entertainment that could potentially last you an entire month of consecutive 30 days of play. Sure, no one's going to be doing that, but it is still a high amount of value if you consider the amount of a coffee in New York is $3. So you could buy 5 Starbucks coffees in New York and then pay for your subscription of AOC with that same amount of money and still have a little bit of change left over. It is important to note that in other parts of the world where, development is an issue and there is less income to the dollar than in, Western countries. So it is a bit more in those countries, and unfortunately this means that those people will get less value for their money. But the fact remains that it isn't an exorbitant fee. However, there is other things that might come into play here, like regional pricing, which I'll discuss in a little bit, that might benefit your region. As a side income, sort of, for the game will also have cosmetic store. No pay to win, of course, but a cosmetic store that would allow you to apply skins to your armor, weapons, skins of your mounts, etc, etc. So those are the two primary methods of income that Intrepid will be generating money from. Next up, I just want to quickly outline the pros and cons that a subscription model might have. I'm probably missing a lot of these things on this list, especially on the con side, because I'm a huge bias towards having a subscription-based fee, so excuse me for missing anything. If I did, just let me know in the comments. First off, there will be no box cost, which means a lesser barrier of entry to starting up the game. Obviously $60 is more than $15 to start, so that's one factor. Next up is there will be no convenience items like bag slots. This is a common problem in these kind of boxed cost games that don't have a sub fee or are free to play even. You might need to purchase bag or character slots to actually be able to use your account fully. These are varying degrees of frustration depending on how necessary the things are, but still there is no risk of this being present in AOC. Next up, we have a more predictive revenue stream that makes planning creation updates easier on the studio, which means we get a better quality product at the end of the day. Probably my favorite factor is there will be no freemium features, for lack of a better word. Basically what I mean by this is a lot of games that have a free-to-play or a box cost model also have a semi-subscription model where you don't have to pay it, but when you do, you get increased loot and XP. I believe ESO and Destiny are really good examples of this. Not a huge fan of that system. It creates a situation where the devs are trying to bribe you literally into purchasing a subscription fee, rather just make it a subscription flat out and everybody gets the same loot from the get-go and all the other benefits that go with it. As a subscription-based model, we can expect fewer bots and real-world money trading in the game. This is actually a really big factor that a lot of people don't see as that impactful, mainly because they don't understand economics. If a bot is able to farm for hundreds of hours a day on a lesser cost, for lack of a better word, you would at the end of the day affect the economy in a negative way, making it more difficult for players to interact with the game. So the subscription-based model makes it harder for those bots to function properly. And finally, the pro that most people will agree with is probably the best benefit, even though I think it should be a given in any game, is that Intrepid will be less incentivized to do any pay to win mechanics. Yes, they have already confirmed that that will not be in the game, but as a subscription model, we can expect that to be more true and more appropriate or more likely to not be present because of the sub model. Moving on to the cons. I don't have a lot here, so let me know if you guys have any better ideas, but my primary cons are a very high cost in the long run. You're essentially expected to pay monthly, obviously, so you're going to rack up a lot of cost in time, especially for people that are in less developed countries and earn less relative salary. Yes, they have full-time jobs, but a $15 to someone like me in South Africa is quite a bit more than $15 for someone in the US, as an example. And the other factor, of course, is that the less you play, the less value you get out of your subscription. Now, this is both a casual deterrent, which I don't like, but at the end of the day, it is a necessity. But even people that might go on a holiday might benefit from canceling their subscription for, let's say, a few weeks and just re-enabling it later on, or they will lose out on that time. So that's also a big negative, but not something that most people won't be able to manage at the very least. And finally, a perception thing. A lot of people find the perception of a subscription based game to be a turnoff. And unfortunately, this means that a lot of people will look at the game and realize the subscription and not even consider playing it. Even though it might be the best game ever made, it is going to have an effect on the initial entry of people into the game itself. Whether this is a terrible thing or just a kind of a medium bad thing is really up to you. I guess the more we talk about the game, the more people are inclined to spend that $15 to at least try it initially. That about wraps it up for the pros and cons. We're going to move on to the next one, which is going to be regional pricing. So Intrepid has already mentioned that this is something that they have been considering since quite early in development. The game might have different pricing based on the geographical locations of the servers you are playing on. So just to be clear, this is not where you are based. Let's say you are sitting in Russia, you would like to play to Europe, you will have to pay the cost of a subscription in Europe to play on that server, not in Russia. To benefit from regional pricing, you will have to play on the Russian server and actually live in Russia. So in other words, you can't go and trick the system by setting up a VPN and saying, cool, I am now in, I don't know, India, so I get less of a cost per subscription, but I want to use that time on an EU server. That would make it way too easy for people to, at the end of the day, pay less. And this is not what we want. What we want instead is that the lower regions in terms of income are able to afford a subscription and still contribute to the game and the overall player base. But the regional pricing might be relevant for you specifically if you are in one of these lower income regions. The possible regions right now, I believe, was only Russia and South America. So there's not a lot of options. In terms of like having one in Africa, I highly doubt it. There will be one in Oceania, either in, I think they said Australia or Singapore, but those will probably be priced more normally since those regions have higher incomes than the third world or even something like Russia, for example. So you might be wondering, should you support the game at this stage? Do you think it is necessary to go and buy an account right now? How much am I supposed to pay? What tier of package should I buy? Do I care about the alphas? Those kinds of questions is what I'll be answering next. First off, should you buy right now? Personally, I would say if there is any hesitation in purchasing this game at this very moment or at any time pre-release, you should wait and not purchase yet. The fact that the NDA will be lifting when Alpha 1 starts next year and the entire development process will have an extreme amount of information out there going out means that you have no requirement to go and purchase the game beforehand. You could literally just follow the process and see whether you might like it or not. Yes, the current packages do include some game time, some bonuses like cosmetics that will be exclusive, but none of those will directly affect your gameplay unless you are an absolutely dedicated fan and believe in this project like I do, like a lot of people in the community do. The game has fully been funded. Your money, while useful, is not a requirement to make this a good game. It has been funded to completion. So wait if there is any doubt in your mind. With that being said, if you consider yourself a hardcore fan and you want to support this project right now, there's only three major factors you need to consider. One is, do you want access to the alpha? Note that the alpha is going to be a very stripped down, purely testing phase. This is not early access, as Steam likes to call their alphas. These are technically actual tests. You will not benefit in any way from playing them other than having a small preview to the game. Or do you want to do beta, which will have more information? These two packages differ quite significantly, with the cheapest pre-alpha pack or alpha pack being $250 and the cheapest beta pack being $75. So there's a lot to consider there. Next up is, what skins are important to you? Do you like the current skins at this moment? If you do, then purchase. If you don't, then wait for a next one. You can, however, purchase these cosmetics separately as time passes, but the cost will rack up very, very quickly. There is one other thing to consider, and that is, do you want to reserve your name for when the game launches? Let's say it's not super unique and you want to call yourself, I don't know, Mr. T, because somebody's going to take that. The $370 or $375 to be honest, Voyager plus pre-order pack will give you the name reservation as well as all the benefits from the $250 pack. So there's a lot to consider. Personally, I would say go with the beta purchases unless you really need the name reservation. However, that being said, if you do want to support the game and you want to support me and you like this video, I put my referral link in the links below in the comments, or rather in the description. So please go and use that. It doesn't cost you anything. It benefits me a tiny bit. So that'll be awesome. And for the closing comments of this video, I just want to mention a few things. And I've already said some of these already. One is that the game benefits greatly from being a subscription based. It makes it better for us as users, as players of the game. So don't look at it as a extreme amount of cost at all. It's not the point. The point is a good product. Next up, the game has been funded to completion, which means you are under no obligation. Your benefits will be minimal and absolutely minimal to purchase right now. If you want to support the game, do not overspend for that reason. You will have plenty of content to see the game beforehand. You're not getting anything special by being able to play it yourself. You will have plenty of streamers to look at. So that's pretty much the summary of this video. You can support it. Please do. It's going to be good. I'm 100% sure about that at this stage. But you don't have to do it right now. Anyway guys, it has been a great day. I've been dying of the heat, so sorry if I fell over my tongue. Living in Africa and in the southern hemisphere means it is right now about 36 degrees and 72% humidity, so I have been dying. Needless to say, it was awesome to speak to you guys once again. Sorry for missing my last week video, and I'll see you later. May Ashes be the best game ever created. I'm out.